Good morning, good afternoon or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you have been following the Keweenaw and Scenic Valley Railroad build, you will know that last week I started on the scenery in the spring diorama, but it took me longer than expected to get into it because of unexpected tasks I had to do first. Well, I hope this week's installment makes up for it, because I did get a lot of work done and got quite a long way in the scenery on that area. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get to work. Well, it's Thursday morning, and although yesterday I was working up a sweat out here, today it's freezing cold again. As you can see, I got all the blocks for this one area stacked up yesterday rather. All the gripper has, for the most part, dried up, and it is rock solid. So today I'm going to carve it. I didn't bother cleaning up any mess yesterday. It's still all where I left it, because today I'm going to make even more mess. This brace that I put on the front was there because some of the foam blocks were causing the fascia to bow out, and it come out about 1/8 of an inch. I noticed along the edge it's curling. You can probably see the curl. I don't think that'll matter because most of that area is going to be cut off anyway. I hope the fascia is flat, because wobbly fascia looks like crap, and I really don't want to have to tear it off and add supports behind it. I did put one stiffener in. You can see this screw here. There is a piece of wood back to the framing, and it's glued to the foam blocks in several places. So hopefully it should stay flat. Well, I've just cut the fascia back a little bit more, getting rid of the edge that was curled out and putting it more in line with where I wanted it to be anyway. So I didn't cut so far into the foam, I taped a block of wood to the base of my jigsaw. It effectively makes the blade shorter. So now I am ready to start carving it to shape. My normal go-to tools for carving the pink foam are either a drywall saw or this end cutting multi-tool. I think this job calls for a bigger carving tool. Well, I've done quite a lot of the rough shaping. The chainsaw turned out to be not a good tool for it. It was heavy and difficult to control, especially difficult to get it into the right angle. Although I do think I might come back to it later, because I like the way that it roughs in some splits in the rocks, so I might reuse it for that. But for the time being, I'm just going to switch to the smaller tools. Well, I think I am now reasonably happy with the shape of that. It looks as though the stream does follow an acceptable path. And I think I have enough interesting shapes. This is by far my most ambitious cliff face to date. And it's amazing how much mess it makes. I'm going to do a bit of a clean up now, and then I will be right back. But that looks a bit better. I have filled both trash cans. I've still got to run a shop vac over everything, but I'm not going to do that just yet because I think I might still have some minor reshaping to do. At least now with most of the mess cleaned up, I can see what I'm doing. Well, I've made a few more slight modifications to the overall shape. I've cut that stream bed back a bit. I've cut a couple more fissures in the main cliff. And I've cut back the main watercourse because it's easy to fall into the trap of getting it too narrow. When the plaster carving goes on, it's going to narrow it down by 1.5 to 2 inches. Because I typically figure between 3/4 to 1 inch of plaster on both sides. Which is why you can now see the plywood base for the trestle in a few places. That's not an error, that's intentional. I've also cut back the fascia just a little bit more. I felt the visible fascia was too big. It was off balance from what there is on the other side. Well, I am all ready to start. I have my drywall mud pan with some water in it. I have cut up 3 rolls of plaster cloth. It won't be enough because it's only the 4-inch wide stuff. If I had 8-inch wide, I would have used it, but I didn't. The procedure here is to paint the foam with the gripper and then put the plaster cloth on while it's still wet, and that gives it a nice good bond. Otherwise it tends to peel off. Well, that is 3 rolls applied to the mountain. I've just prepped 3 more. That should be enough to finish the bottom area, and I'll probably need 1 more at the top. So let me get back to work. I'll check in with you again later. Well, 3 more rolls was not quite enough to finish the bottom. I was still a couple of pieces short. Let me prep another one and I will continue. Well, that is 7 full rolls. I did not have a single piece left over. At one point I thought I was 1 piece short. Anyway, I still haven't done the area around the double track tunnel. I'm still waiting for a suitable casting to go in there. But the rest of it's done. That can start getting rock moulds or rock carvings, or a mixture of the two. I'm not going to start that today. Don't really have enough time to really get into it. So I'll just go in now and I'll come back out tomorrow. I'll see you then. Well, today my goal is to get as much rock carving as I can do in this area. I certainly won't finish it today. It's more than a 1-day project, but I want to make a good start on it. I have a few rock moulds I've bought out to speed the process. I couldn't find the one that I was looking for. I don't know whether it's been lost. Anyway, I have a new camera position. Hopefully this will work better. There's the old shelf clamped to the beam. It wasn't totally successful yesterday. I think this one will work better. So let me just get busy and I'll check in with you again periodically. Actually, before I get started on the rock work, I just remembered I want to get a tunnel portal fitted into that corner. So with that in mind, I've peeled the masking tape off because I have to make sure that it's tall enough for the double stacks to go through. Well, that will work. I've got 1/2-inch blocks of plywood under the 2 legs For the most part that can be hidden in the ballast, but I also made sure it lined out quite well, so I'll just paint it the same colour and it will look like concrete formwork. I've used squares of plywood to hold the portal upright. This one had to be screwed to the side of the sub-road bed because it wasn't wide enough, but the other one could just sit on top. Now I'm going to leave that without disturbing it until that glue has had time to dry. I'll paint the inside of the tunnel and the side walls flat black and put a lid on it. Just be a piece of the pink foam across the top to form the rest of the hill. But I need to leave that undisturbed until the glue has had plenty of time to set. One other thing I want to do before I get the plaster out is to make a few slight modifications to the shape of this area. Looking at the photographs last night, I decided that I want to cut back the near side of this tunnel just so that the train is visible for an extra couple of inches before it gets on the trestle. And I think that needs to cut back there, otherwise that ledge just doesn't look right. And then the other thing I want to do is cut back the fascia just a little bit more down the side of the valley. The more I cut away, the more that will help with the curling issue as well. Not to mention the fact that it's still very one-sided. Well, that is 4 batches of plaster done. Everything at the top is hand carved, and I've used rock molds lower down but blended into them. So hopefully you can't really tell where the molds end and the hand carving starts. I've got to cut this back just a little bit more here. It seems to be encroaching on the tunnel area. I think if I try to continue where it is now, I'm going to run into trouble. So let me carve that back just a little bit and I'll continue. Now that I'm working on the rock tunnel, I've had to take the masking tape off the track, put a double stack in there just to make sure it misses. I've got a lot more clearance over the front than I really need, so I will close that off later with the next batch. But I've got about a scale 2 feet of miss all the way around at the closest point, so I'm going to call that good. So now I can remask the track and continue. Well, I've now done the tunnel. I put a plank of foam over the top of it, I painted the inside black, and I cut back that cutting wall because it was too close. But as soon as I came around this side of the railroad, I knew I didn't like it. There's nowhere near enough ground over the top of the tunnel. I should have added at least another 2 inches. I was a bit concerned that I was getting too close to the top of the backdrop, but I should have just accepted it. In fact, I think I might go right to the top of the backdrop, put 4 inches above it. So I'm not going to get that far today with the rock work anyway, so I will think about it tonight. But for the rest of this afternoon, I have plenty more rock work I can get on with in the foreground. Well, that is all I'm going to do today. I have most of the right side of the valley done, except for right at the bottom. All the way up this side, the rock tunnel, all the way down here, the back of the waterfall, and most of this around there. That's the first piece I did. Next time I come out here, I will fix the area over the tunnel because that just doesn't look right. But it's Friday now and I have a whole lot of other work to do over the weekend, so it'll probably be Monday before I get out here again. I have glued the fascia on with Loctite power grab, and I left this brace clamped across the aisle to give that a good squeeze, and bricks leaning against the bottom. Hopefully that power grab will hold it. It's usually pretty good against foam. Anyway, I'm going to head in now and I will see you again Monday. Don't go away. Well, it is now Tuesday morning. I didn't come out here at all yesterday because by the time I'd finished taking care of all the other stuff I had to do, there wasn't much time left. I've taken away the braces and This looks like it has stuck really well. I will just trim off all the squeeze out with a knife and call that good. I won't be able to do as much as I wanted to today because I don't have enough plaster of Paris. I have less than a full bag left because I started the second bag towards the end of Friday. Unfortunately, my local Home Depot does not have any. I was hoping they would have restocked by now. They did an online search and there is nothing less than an hour away from me. So I'm just going to do as much as I can and then get on with something else. I'll check in with you again later. Well, that is all the plaster carving I can do today because I'm completely out. Well, I've got about 1 cup left, which is nowhere near enough to make a worthwhile batch. But I have got all the low down stuff done, all the way from the bottom of the valley, all the front half, and probably 3/4 of the way up. It's just the area around the rear tunnel and the top half of the river valley that I'm still missing. But even though I'm out of plaster, there's still plenty I can get on with. I can still correct the shape of the hill over the top of that tunnel. I can do some cleaning up. I can sand my fascia. And I can move this workbench back just a couple of feet and start working on shaping the next piece of landscape. That's all got to be done. Doesn't really matter what order I do it in. I'm also tempted to do a little bit of rock colouring as well. I watched someone else's tutorial a few days ago and he did basically the same colouring steps but in a different order to what I'm used to. And I'm thinking I'd like to try that because he got really good results. Well, I'm just using an old muffin pan and I've mixed up 6 different washes. I've got a light and a dark grey. This one at the back is called khaki, but to me it's more brown. And got 3 different browns: oxide, burnt umber and nutmeg. Well, that is the first colouring step done on a portion of the rocks. I'm not going to do any more. I don't know if it's going to come out in the video that way, but for some reason it looks darker in the screen than it does in person. It looks a lot more grey on the screen too. It's actually very brown. I won't know until I release the video whether the colour is accurate or not. But as I say, that's only the first step. There's still several more steps to go, and most of them will lighten it. And of course it will lighten up overnight as all the moisture soaks in. Anyway, I'm not going to do any more today. I'm just going to go in and get on with some of the inside jobs. So I'll check in with you again tomorrow. Don't go away. Well, I've done a bit of dry brushing on these rocks I coloured last night. I've also moved the workbench in preparation for continuing the landforms over the next couple of feet. Before I can continue anymore, I have to reinstall the trestle so I can get this footing in the right place. I managed to knock it off when I was shaping the foam. So I'm just going to have to put the trestle back so I can align it. Let me do that quickly and I'll be right back. Well, I'm not really sure what to say now, apart from letting you know that I have re-glued the footing. The main reason for making this clip is that I wanted an excuse to show the trestle in place. You can't blame me for that. Well, I've started working on the formers for the next area. This bit at the back is glued permanently to the framework, being sure to leave a joint down here, and then this piece will remain removable because there is a turnout under there. When I designed the railroad, I toyed with the idea of moving it further back and having it accessible from below, but I figured it would be more difficult to climb in there than to have a removable piece of scenery. I will probably need to trim that so it's an easier fit. but at the moment it's better to leave it oversized, leave it tight, so I can always trim it later. I don't want to have it loose in the hole. Now I've just got to arrange a little bit in front of it, which will be a part of this infill piece which I built to hold the fascia. Well, that is the next part roughed in. I've only gone about another 18 inches along the front, but I've gone twice that at the back because I wanted to get the stream bed finished, and this was the length of the foam that I had. That was a good place to stop it because it's resting on a joist. So now I'm just going to shape that with the multi-tool. I'm not going to use the chainsaw this time. It's much smaller pieces to cut. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Well, I've got this new area of pink foam shaped approximately right. I've also had a good clean up so I can see what I've got. And I think there's a couple of areas where I want to cut it back just a little bit. I want to make some minor adjustments under the trestle here. Otherwise, I think I'm happy with the shape of it. And as for the lift out section, rather than cut it back so it's a really loose fit, what I think I'm going to do is just put the plaster cloth over the top of it, gluing it in place with the gripper, but making sure I don't get any gripper down the joints. And then when that's had time to dry, I will just come back and cut the plaster cloth with a knife. I think that'll be the best way of getting a reasonable fit without it being too tight to come out. So let me go away, do all those things, and I'll check in with you again later. Well, that is about all I can do in this area for now, because the next steps require plaster, which I will be able to get next Monday. So although it's still really early in the day, I am going to go inside and get on with one of my other jobs. And this will just have to stay like this until then. Well, that is all for this week. Not only is the video starting to get rather long, but it's also a convenient point to break it because of running out of plaster of Paris. So let me get some more materials and I'll see you again next week. Thanks for watching and bye for now.